Welcome to the Phil Steele Plus tour for Friday, December the 2nd. Up for you today. I've got more free selections for you. Been on a nice little run here for the tour. A 7-4 week last week, 8-3 the week before, 15-7 over the last 2 weeks. That brings the record to 42-29 on the season for the actual selections. And even the quick hitters having a good year, 34-25. Got selections for you today, so let's get right to it. We'll start with your first one. And as you know, I like to do the underdog outgain their foe. And you could tell by the one we got here on the screen, UCF and Tulane, that we are going with that one as the underdog to outgain their foe. First of all, we'll take a look at what PressBox has. And a quick note to you. I know that the tour has been doing great. Unfortunately, inside the PressBox hasn't been doing as great. It's had a couple of losing weeks back-to-back now. So the PressBox, I'm disappointed in the results for the season so far for PressBox, but those are my best plays. These are the ones that I just missed being the best plays. As you can tell, it's been that type of year where the ones that I'm not using on PressBox have been having a great record. The ones I'm using on PressBox are a little bit below 500 this year, so it's been disappointing, but I do put the same work and effort that I've been into PressBox, and I will continue to do that if in the future. But just thought I'd mention it to you. If you're a PressBox user and you are watching this, just to let you know that I'm disappointed in the overall PressBox record so far this year. But let's take a look at this matchup, and it's the underdog outgain their foe. And as you know, the one thing that PressBox gives you every week, which I love, is the computer projected final. And I'm already going through the next season, first write-throughs for the magazine. And I'm amazed when you take a look at the magazine, the computer projects the stats for the season. How many of the stats are right on, within 5-10 yards of what they actually had for the year? That's on page 43 of the magazine. Well, naturally, you want to know how they do week by week as well. And here, inside the PressBox gives you my computer forecast. So here it's showing you UCF is going to have a 414 to 408 yard edge. That's why they're in this particular segment. And let's go back to that first meeting when they played. Once again, I like to show off what Phil Steele Plus is about. This way you know how to use it to its fullest. So down here, Ted Ganji from collegepressbox.com lets us use his college box scores. And if you go back to the first meeting, Tulane played UCF here. And we just click on the box. This tells you how the game was played. You can see that UCF was pretty much in control. They led 24-7. Gave up a score just before the half, but then extended it to 31-14. Tulane got a score with 1:46 left to pull within 7 points at the end. But really, it's a game that Tulane dominated. And you look at the stats for the game, Tulane had a overall number of 468 to 391 yards, and that includes Tulane's late drives. And like I said, these right here, they're not just the box score of the game, but you can actually go through the play-by-play of the entire game. Every play of every game is right here on philsteele.com. And this is what I do each week. After the games are over, I go through the entire play-by-play of the game, and then I write my little past history of the result of what actually happened in the game. But it really helps you go through it. So that's available here, not only for this year's games, but last year's games, the year before that's games. They're all up there. You just click on box, and you get the actual play-by-play of every single game. That's a nice feature of philsteele.com. So we've already established the fact that UCF dominated the opening game. They have a yardage advantage, according to my computer. And finally, we'll take a look at last week's game. Last week, Tulane played Cincinnati, and when you look at that, the main thing I want to point out here is when you look at Cincinnati, it was not their starting quarterback. It was Evan Prater, and Prater hit just 10-26 for 102 yards last week. So they did beat Cincinnati on the road. It was a good win, but it was against a backup quarterback who only hit 10-26 passes. John Rice Plumlee has been practicing this week. He will play. Mikey Keene, of course, has been doing a great job filling in when Plumlee's been injured. So add it all up, your first play this week, the underdog to outgain the foe, 6-2 the last 8 weeks. We're going with UCF plus the 4 over Tulane. Let's do a little housekeeping here before I get to play number 2. You're going to love play number 2. It's my history play. You know, the history plays have been doing extremely well, and you're going to love the history we came up with for this one. But I just thought I'd mention to you that if you would like to get in on PressBox, let me just take a look here, see if I got the file. Yeah, here it is. If you would like to join PressBox for the postseason, I've had 2 pretty good postseasons. Last year, the selections went 5-3. The year before that, they went 5-2, or actually just the opposite. 2020, they went 5-3 in the bowls, and then 5-2 last year. So that's 10-5 over the last 2 years. If you are a Phil Steele Plus, you're watching it right now, got a deal for you. It's called Plus Deal 22. Just go to the Phil Steele store. You will get 4 bowl issues. Those are $20 a piece. You'll get 4 playoff issues. Those are $20 a piece. It's a $160 value. The regular price is $89, but since you're watching the tour today, take $10 off. Make it just $79. And that'll get you all 8 issues of Inside the Press Box for the entire postseason. And it may even turn out to be 5 bowl issues. Last year we ended up with 6 bowl issues, but how many ever bowl issues come up? You'll get them all. You'll get every playoff issue all the way through the Super Bowl. And your discount just $79 when you put in Plus Deal 22. Just go to philsteele.com, click on the store, and that's all set up for you. So just thought I'd mention that. Now let's get to this pretty interesting thing I've got for the history play this week. And we're going to take a look at the MAC championship game. We got Ohio against Toledo. Now, this game is being played in Detroit, so it's a neutral site. The heck, I'm going to put Ohio on the right, and we're going to put Toledo on the left. Now, a couple things I want to point out to you. First of all, when you join Phil Steele Plus, you get access to our ATS logs. And now that you get the entire season, you know these are in a magazine, but here you go, the entire season of ATS logs for all the FBS teams. And I want to point out here with Ohio U that Ohio is on quite a nice run here. Look at these W's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They've actually covered 8 straight games. They're 7-1. They're playing their best football. I'll get to that in a minute, but I thought I'd show you the 8-0 against the spread. And the other thing about Toledo, they pretty much are backing into this. They have lost their last 5 games against the spread. Now, Toledo's a 3-point favorite in this game, but they've lost 5 in a row against the spread. We also have, and nobody in the country has this, FCS ATS logs. Look at that. You want to know the line on any FCS game this year? You want to know the line on past years? I'll get to that when we get to the FCS, but it's in here. So you got access and spreads for every single game all season long, and you even get it for the NFL right here. So that's another nice feature on Phil Steele Plus. Just go to the this tab right here. Best thing is I always bookmark this tab, because it gives you here, you get the strength of schedule, pass efficiency, defense, special teams. Let's see who's got the best offense versus defense. Georgia's number 1, Ohio State's number 2, Michigan's number 3. And ironically, I didn't put up the Vegas power ratings as early as usual. I forgot completely about it. I will have that up for you today, so check out the Vegas power ratings. But Vegas's power ratings have Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. But that pretty much takes you right down the line, shows you how the teams have been doing. This is the offensive average, how many yards you put up over an opponent's average, and defensively what you hold the team to below their opponent's average each week. Strength of wins, pain of losses. Number 1 is actually Michigan at 64. That win over Ohio State put them up there. Georgia at 63. TCU at 58. Ohio State 56. USC 54. So pretty much right there where the committee's got the top 5. That's right there with your strength of wins and losses. YPP offenses available. Tennessee still number 1, but Ohio State's right there, as is USC. And all that's available here, so check that out each week. Once again, purpose of the tour is to show you how to use Phil Steele Plus to its fullest. But let's go back to the team pages. We got Ohio on the right. We're going to put Toledo on the left because that is their opponent, and we'll do that. Now, I just showed you. Look at Ohio. At the start of the season, they opened up 2-3, and look at their defense. First 6 games, they were poor on defense. But I've been watching these guys each week. I watch all the MAC games on the weekends. Their defense is playing exceptional. And you look at the last 6 games, Most yards, 377. The red has disappeared from the defense, and over the last 4 games, they've allowed 305 yards per game, holding opponents to 54 yards per game, below their season average. The offense putting up 69 above the season average, and they're outgaining foes by 156 yards per game. They're actually playing the last 4 weeks at 104.2 level. Toledo's playing at a 95.3 level. Now, I will point out this, individual player stats, Curtis Rourke, and I love the individual player stats. I mean, you can go back and look at each individual player stats for the last 4 years. You want to see how a player did against an individual team. It's all in there. You just come down here and click on individual player stats. There's all last year's games. Got them for each and every game. But as you can tell by the individual player stats, Curtis Rourke is out. He missed the Bowling Green game. He's out for the year. Harris came in. He's a different run threat here. If you take a look here, Harris ran 12 times for 65 yards. You look at Rourke, he wasn't much of a run threat this season. So he gives him a different dimension, and they did beat Bowling Green and beat him handily last week with Harris. Meanwhile, for Toledo, Daquan Finn started to play. He missed the Bowling Green game, played against Western, came out with an injury. I don't know if he's 100%. I don't know if he will be 100%. Tucker Gleason only hit 13 of 38 against Western Michigan last week. So their quarterback's no ball of wax either. I don't think we have 100% Finn. We don't have Rourke. But we do have an Ohio team that's doing this. And the clincher, and the reason it's here in the history play is this. Oh, by the way, when these two teams, and I'm not going to show you individually what it is, but we broke it down. The 6 common foes they placed. They each played 6 teams. Ohio's 5-1 straight up, 6-0 ATS versus those 6 teams. Toledo's 3-3 straight up, 2-4 ATS. So Ohio does against common foes has done well. But here's the clincher, and this was discovered by Robbie. Robbie came up with this one this week. It is, no, not that. Let me get that off the screen. It is the MAC Championship. And what we discovered, and naturally you get the logs like this on every game, but when you look at the MAC Championship, here it is. Here is the favorite in the MAC Championship. Here is the underdog. This is what the favorite has done. So the favorite has gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 7 straight up in the game. As you can tell out here, there's upsets. Now remember, if it's green, you don't have to look it up. That means that the home team, or in this case, the favorite, won the game. If it's red, that means they lost the game. And the same thing with the spread. You don't have to go, okay, they were minus 13.5, they won by 20, they covered. It's right there. If it's red, that means the team that we're looking at, which in this case is the favorite in a MAC title game, lost the game. If it's green, they won. So the underdog has actually won the last 6 games, 4 straight upsets, 7 upsets the last 4 years, and in the last 14 years. And the underdog in the MAC title game, 12-2 against the spread with 7 outright upsets. That is your history part of the play, and we're taking Ohio +3 over Toledo. Something else I want to bring up to you real quick because we're winding down as the season goes. I've been giving you a lot of good stuff here, a lot of winners also on the Phil Steele Plus Tour. You might wonder what I'm working on now that I go from 60 teams to 20 right here on my Twitter, which is @PhilSteele042, and I'll keep you posted of all the moves. As you can tell, I've got quite a few updates, all the coaching changes, all the players hitting the portal. But I have started the first write-through on the process of the magazine. It is a 6+ month process. I started on November the 27th. Here we are on December 2nd. And what I do in the first write-through process, just to give you an idea of how it works, is I read through every story that was written about the team for the game. So here's a picture of Colorado, 429 pages of reading I went through. This gives you great insight. There was a week where they were down to 1 scholarship running back, and it was a freshman. All their top running backs were out. You go through the offensive line. They made a shift on the offensive line week 4, pretty much stayed with the other units the last 8. They had 4 different starting quarterbacks last year. The defensive line had high expectations coming into the year, underperformed. Takes you through the whole season, makes it fresh in my mind, and then I write the first write-through, which is what kind of shape were they heading into the year and what happened. Then I look at the players that are leaving and going. Now, naturally, Naturally, the transfer portal will mess that up. That's why we got second and third right-throughs. But right now, you could say, okay, these players are back, these players are gone, so my outlook on the position is this, and I've got the entire right-through done. There's 132 teams in next year's magazine. I just finished team number 7. That's why the magazine's a 6+ month right through. The second right through is in spring after we get all the transfer portal, the freshman signing classes, current rosters, and then we rewrite it. And then the third right through is after I talk to the head coaches. They put all my 3 deeps and 4 deeps in order, put my entire team in the right order as far as the depth charts go. Tell me about the players, how they feel about the positions, see if it jives how I feel about the position, and then we do the third right through. But it's a lot of process going through the magazine. Here it is. I'm not going to watch a single play of basketball between now and then, but the magazine is all I'm working on right now. That, and I'll be doing the bowl games, but 429 pages of Colorado yesterday. It took me a good portion of the day, but it really gets you into tune of the team, and it takes you day by day all season long so you can see the ebbs and flows of each position. So just thought I'd tell you a little bit about the magazine process. All right, let's get to our third official play. We're having 3 official plays today, and this is the number 3 play. And we're going to go to the FCS for this one. So let's go to the FCS. And nobody's got FCS information like we have it. There are 8 more playoff games this week, guys. We're going to put Weber State here on the left, and we're going to put Montana State here on the right. Now, when they played in the first game, Weber State actually had 4 bad snaps in the game. They lost like 116 yards in bad snaps. But the one thing I want to point out about that game is that even if you added in those 116 yards, Montana State still had a 487 to 330-yard edge. So they still had a significant yardage edge in the first meeting, 47 to 338 when they first met. Montana State. Now, you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, they played Montana. Remember, we used them here on the Phil Steele Plus tour. They were actually a home underdog to Montana. Do you remember that? And I went to their individual player stats, and I pointed out that Sean Chambers had actually missed 3 games. Right here, you can see Sean Chambers didn't run, but he would be back for the Montana game. He was back. He's the Wyoming transfer. He's a dangerous runner, 1986. Combined with Tommy Malott, who also can run but also throws, they have a very dangerous team. So both quarterbacks are back, full force. You look at how they do at home. They are plus 227 yards per game at home. Weber State is just plus 28 yards per game at home. Montana State, and this is why I told you I could show you the last 5 years' logs. I showed you where to go for this year's logs. But if you look at the last 5 years, here is your spread logs. Chris went back and looked at how Montana State's done as a home favorite. And next year on this, it's like getting your own magazine in the FCS. You just click on the forecast. You have got the entire forecast for the season. It tells you all about the quarterback position, running back, offense, defense. You get a complete magazine because every FCS team is written up. Next year, we'll actually have the logs in there with home favorite, away favorite for the last 6 years because we've been charting them. Nobody else has it. You also have the individual player stats. All that's available. And you can actually go back in the FCS to 2011 and get the green, red, and the complete write-up on each game. And you get the individual player stats all the way back to 2018. That's what happened in every game then. So all this is at your fingertips. You want to do any bit of research, it's there. Nobody has got spread logs on the FCS for the last 5 years. We do. You get them right here on Phil Steele Plus. Just go to philsteele.com and sign up for Phil Steele Plus for that. But let's take a look at that. We've got 22-4 is how Montana State does as a home favorite. In conference play, you know I like to look at that. Plus 160 yards per game in conference play. Weber State is plus 63. So you've got the better team, a great home team. This year, I believe they are 7-0 against the spread at home, 22-4 against the spread overall as a home favorite in our since we've been charting them. And let's wrap it up with this. Last 4 weeks, Montana State's playing to a 94.7. Weber State's playing to an 81.7. Now, the line originally opened up, at 1 on this game. But now there's plenty of places that have it. There's actually 5 or 6 places that have it. The line has moved up to 4, which is more reasonable. I still like Montana State -4. The last 4 weeks right there tell you Montana State by 16. They delivered for us against Montana. They dominated the first game, even without those long snap things. I know they only won by 5, but they had a large yardage edge in the game. I like Montana State -4 over Weber State. All right, let's get to your quick hitters now. And we'll pop over there. The first quick hitter, hey, let's stay with a FCS team, but it's actually an FCS team versus an FBS team. And we're going to take a look at Valparaiso against New Mexico State. Now, New Mexico State has been a great story this year. I don't know if you've been following, but look at this. They opened up the year 0-4, blowout losses, same old New Mexico State. Then they beat Hawaii. They beat New Mexico by 12. They beat UMass. They beat Lamar by 39. Now, that's important because Lamar's an FCS team. They were a big favorite, and they won that game by 37 points. They also beat Liberty by 35 points on the road. And the main thing is, I know you guys have really been following the career of Diego Pavia, but Pavia has really been throwing the football much better these last couple of weeks. Look at this, 13-18 against Lamar, 16-21 against Liberty for 214 yards. I was concerned about their quarterback position coming into the year. I would probably rank it at the bottom of all teams in the FBS, but Pavia has been coming on, 81 rush, 50, 125, so I like what he's doing. So they've settled on Pavia as the quarterback. They've been splitting him and Fracas all year. I definitely like what Pavia is doing, and New Mexico has won 5 of their last 7 games. If they win this, they got the waiver. They get to a bowl game this year. How about that? Jerry Kill, fantastic job, independent coach of the year this year. Now they're taking on Valparaiso. Last week, when they went to finish the game against Liberty, I am sure Jerry Kill said, you know what, guys, we are going to get another game. We're going to play another game and stay ready, we're going to practice because we are playing again next week. I don't know who we're playing, but we're playing next week. Meanwhile, Valpo over here is a poor FCS team. Let's see in the last time they had a winning record. They had a winning record during the 2020, which just was strange. Other than that, Valpo really doesn't have, look at all that red. They don't have a lot of winning records, all right? So Valpo this year, a losing team to begin with, did go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 this year. Had a decent year, but they're playing in a non-scholarship conference here. The Pioneer doesn't even award scholarships. So their level of the SCS is not where the Colonial is. It's not where the Big Sky is. It's not where the Missouri Valley is. It's not even where Lamar is. These guys are non-scholarship, and against non-scholarship teams, this is what they did. Now, they've got losses, like Dartmouth beat them by 22, Drake beat them by 24, St. Thomas beat them by 27, so they have some big losses. When they finish Drake, you got to think that everybody on the Crusaders were thinking that's the last game. Went home, season's over, threw their pads down, they're done, they're over with. Then coach calls them up probably Tuesday and says, guess what, guys, we got a game. So they had thought the season was done. Now they got to come back and play. Remember Rutgers last year when they played their bowl game against Wake Forest? They were done with the season, then had to come back. Wake Forest rolled them. So you have a New Mexico State team that, first of all, my computer likes them to win by 37. The average game grades here has got them at an 81.8 versus a 43.2. So let's do the math there. That's 38.6. Add in the 3-point home edge, add in the altitude, you're looking at 41. The spread on this game, guys, is 28. That's reasonable. New Mexico State has proven they can beat an FCS team. Lamar's better than Valparaiso by more than 28. They beat them by 37. I'm going to use New Mexico State minus 28 over Valparaiso as your first quick hitter. Second quick hitter, let's stay in the FCS, then we'll get back to an FBS game. And we're going to look at this quick hitter, which is Gardner Webb against William and Mary. You guys know Gardner Webb, and I gotta hand it to Chris. Chris is on our staff. Chris writes the SEC. Chris writes the ACC, a couple of conferences, does a great job. And when Chris analyzed the Big South this year, Gardner Webb was picked 4th in the Big South. Chris had him winning it. And guess what? Gardner Webb has been a spread darling all year. They went 5-0 in Big South play. They were plus 177 yards per game. They won the Big South. Nice job, Chris, on that. Gardner Webb is playing William & Mary. Now, William & Mary does play in a stronger conference. I'll give them that. They're playing the Colonial, and William & Mary won the Colonial. In fact, their only loss this year was against Elon. So this is a very good William & Mary team. You may recognize this guy, Mike London. I wrote about him in the magazine, talked to him every year when he was at Virginia. And he is doing a great job here with William and Mary, getting them to, it took him a little bit. It's his third year, and he got it going. And this year, they only lost one game. Now, they've had games where they only beat Hampton by 6. They beat Rhode Island by 1. They beat Delaware by 6. So they've had some close games, but they've been winning, which is the big plus. They've got Bronson Yoder and Malachi Emo at the running back spots. Those two guys are a dynamic combination. But look at this. Gardner-Webb's got a pretty good run defense. They gave up some yards to Marshall. They gave up some yards to Elon. They lost Elon by 6. They lost Elon by 4, by the way, if you're looking at mutual opponents. But they got a pretty good run defense, only allowing 3.7, 102 yards per game. Another thing with Gardner-Webb that they got going for them is they are 8-0 against the spread away. And one thing I want to point out, they went at Coastal Carolina. That was a fully loaded Coastal Carolina early in the year with their quarterback. They lost by 4, but they outgained them by 69 yards. They went at Liberty, fully loaded with their quarterback at home. They only lost by 1, and they outgained Liberty. So they outgained Coastal on the road. They outgained Liberty on the road. Even though they play in a weaker conference than the Colonial, they have proven they can step up against FBS teams and keep it close. Last week, they delivered for us. And, the thing I want to point out about the Eastern Kentucky game, 52-41, this was actually 52-27. Eastern Kentucky got a couple of late scores in that game. So Gardner-Webb dominated that even more than the final score. They won for us last week. They're getting a full 10 points on the road. Let's keep riding these running Bulldogs of Gardner-Webb. We're taking Gardner-Webb plus 10 over William and Mary. All right, back to the FBS for your final quick hitter this week. And I do want to remind you, I've got NFL stuff up here. I'm a college guy. I follow college football thoroughly. FCS, FBS, that's all I do. I really haven't watched any NFL, so I can't give you NFL plays yet. Maybe I'll start watching some NFL games this Sunday. Maybe. If I do, I might have a couple of them up for you next week. I'll dip my toe in the water, and I'll just have to see how the teams have been doing. Naturally, I know that all the guys from college, and I have followed the NFL in past years. This was the first year I really didn't even watch any NFL games. Just fully focused on college football, as you can tell, writing the magazine right now, and that's the one thing that I do. But this final one, we're going to take a look at tonight's game, Pac-12 title game. USC's playing Utah. Now, I'm going to put Utah on the right for a reason. I expect them to have 70% of the crowd. So they do have a slight home field edge here. They had the big home field edge in the first one. But the couple things I want to point out here. First of all, my computer's got this thing going over the total of 67. Last week, you look at USC and Notre Dame. Notre Dame's an under team. They run the football, and they have a great defense, one of the best defenses in the country. And there were 65 points in that game. Well, Utah's got more explosive offense, a better quarterback in Cam Rising, who's got a 22-7 ratio. And their defense not quite up to Notre Dame standards, although they've been playing well. In the first meeting, this game was 43-42, 562 yards, 556 yards. I expected the number to be in the 70s for this one, and the total is 60. Let me just double check this total. Make sure I got the right number here. It is 67. So we're going to go with over 67. We've got a USC team that's been a pure over team. The UCLA game, even against an under team in Notre Dame. Last week they went over the total. Caleb Williams can wrap up the Heisman with a big win here. He's got a 34-3 ratio. Cam Rising can move. Look at the red on USC's defense. They give up yards and points. I think Utah will score. USC could score on anybody in the country. Their low total at 30 against Washington State. So 42, 45, 41, 55, 48, 38. I think they get in the 40s, and I think Utah's got a chance of getting in the 40s. Look at the red over here, the green over here, a red-green matchup. We're going to go with over in USC and Utah. One other thing I wanted to point out, and this is just an interesting note. This is not a selection. But Michigan, I hear a lot of chatter about how Michigan's offensive line dominated Ohio State last week. I mean, look at this. They ran for 252 yards, 7.2 yards per carry. But let's take a look at that a little bit closer. If we click at the box score for this one, you can see that Michigan had 75 and 85-yard touchdown runs. That's 160 yards. Take those out of this equation. They had 92 yards rushing on 33 carries, 2.8 yards per carry. So do keep that in mind. Michigan wasn't as dominant as they were statistically last week running the football. In fact, on 33 of their carries, they averaged 2.8 yards per carry. They just got an 85 and a 75-yard run. Well, the season's dwindling down, guys, but I'm still putting the work and effort into this each and every week. There's FCS games next week. I might have NFL next week. I will doubt we'll have 6 games next week, but I'll have something for you here on the Phil Steele Plus Tour, and let's hope we can grab ourselves another winning weekend this week. Hope you enjoyed watching it, and enjoy the championship games this weekend, guys.